How's it going, everybody? It's your bro here. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, I'm going to teach you guys the basics of serialization in Java. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Alright, everybody, let's talk about serialization. So what this is that it's the process of converting an object into a byte stream. So the benefit of this is that an object persists. It saves the state of the object after the program exits, and the reverse process of serialization is deserialization. That's kind of a tongue twister to say. So deserialization is the reverse process of converting a byte stream back into an object. So think of serialization as you're saving a file with the object's information, and deserialization is as if you're loading a saved file. So serialization is taking an object and saving it to a byte stream. Deserialization is taking a byte stream and loading it back into an object. So this byte stream can be saved as a file or sent over a network, and it can even be sent to a different machine. So this byte stream can be saved as a file, and it usually ends with a .ser file extension, which is platform independent. So this is some very basic info on serialization. Let's do some practice on this. So let's create a new project, file, new Java project. I will call this serializer. And finish. Don't create. Go to your project folder. Create a new class, file, new class. Name this whatever you want. I'll name this main. Check public static void main. And then let's create another class, maybe a class based on users. So file, new class, and I will call this user. So what I would like to do is to save the state of a user that we create. So what should all users have? Let's just have maybe two variables, a name and a password. Let's create a method too, but this has to be uppercase. There. All right, so let's create a method as well, public void. We'll call this say hello. All this will do is system.out.println hello name. Then let's go back to our main class and create an instance of this class. So user, we'll call this user equals new user. And then let's assign these variables. So we need a name and a password. So user.name, and these are public, so we can actually access these from our main class. So username equals bro. And then user.password equals I heart pizza. And then at the end, let's just call the say hello method. So user.say hello. All right, simple enough. We have an instance of the user class called user. So now I would like to save the state of this object. So I've listed the steps to serialize an object. So step 1, your object class should implement the serializable interface. So let's go to our user class, and we're going to implements serializable. Step 2, add this import, java.io.serializable. And we can simply just hover over this and add this import. So I'm also going to add this to our main class because we'll probably need it here as well eventually. So step 3 is that we need to add this line of code. So file output stream, we need a name for this, file outworks equals new file output stream, and then the file name or the file path. So let's add that. I'm actually going to get rid of this say hello method because we won't really need it. So step 3 is right here. We're going to add file output stream file out equals new file output stream, and then let's add a name or a file path here. So I will name this file maybe user info.ser. So we'll also need to add this import. Actually, I'll just import everything related to java.io. So then we have our bases covered. All right, so we will eventually need to surround this with a try and catch block or add a throws declaration, but we'll do that later. So step 4, add object output stream. We'll name this out equals new object output stream and the name of our file output stream. So object output stream. We'll name this out equals new object output stream. Then within parentheses, we're going to place our file output stream instance within the parentheses. All right, so then we're going to write out.write object and then the object name. So out.write object, and our object name is user. And then lastly, we're going to close everything that we've opened. So we're going to take out.close as well as file out.close. So most of this is underlined red, so we either need to surround everything with a try and catch block or add throws declaration, but just for simplicity, I'm going to add throws declaration just to keep things kind of simple. All right, and then let's display a message at the end. So we'll say something such as object info saved. And then let's run this. So object info saved. So if you go to your project folder, it really depends on where you place the file path. So this is going to end up within my project folder. You could place the file path for your desktop or something too if you want. So I'm going to refresh my project folder, and here is that file, userinfo.ser. And let's open this and take a look at it. So this is all Java bytecode. So this file saves the state of this object. You can see here that it says I love pizza and a few other things that might be recognizable, but it's all in bytecode though. So we can actually send this byte stream over a network or save it as a file and send it to a different machine. So what we're going to do in this project is that we're going to create another project folder called deserialize, and we're going to open this file and deserialize it and turn it back into an object. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a new project folder, so new Java project, and we'll call this deserializer. Finish, don't create. Then let's go to this project folder and let's create another main class. So name main or whatever else you want to call this, check public static void main, click finish. And then we're going to create an identical copy of this user class within our serializer folder. So I'm going to copy this, and then let's go back to our deserializer project folder. And I'm going to file, new class, and I will call this user as well, so it matches. And then I'm going to copy everything within the user class from the serializer project folder. So these should match then, which they do. Okay, so I'm going to close out of everything related to the serializer project folder. And then we are now within our deserializer project. So here's the steps to deserialize a byte stream back into an object. It's really the reverse process of serialization, but there's one extra step though. So step 1 is that we're going to declare our object but not instantiate it. So we're going to say user equals, and instead of saying something such as new user, this creates a new user, so we're instead just going to say null for now. Alright, so step 2, your class should implement the serializable interface, and we just copied this over from our serializer project folder, so make sure you have implements serializable, then make sure you have this import, but I'm also going to import this here as well for our main class. And I'll just import everything related to java.io. All right, step 4, we need to add this line of code. So when we serialized our object, we had file output stream, but this time it's file input stream because we're importing something. So file input stream file in equals new file input stream. And then we need the file name if it's local or the file path. So let's actually take a look to see where this is located. So this is within my serializer project folder. I'm just going to look at the properties of it. And this is the location. So I'm just going to copy this file path and then paste it within the parentheses. And then I need to surround this with a set of double quotes. And then all of these backslashes need to be double, because that's the escape character. Step 5, object input stream in equals new object input stream, and then the file in instance. So let's add that. Object input stream, we'll call this in, equals new object input. I really cannot spell today, I'm sorry. New object input stream file in. Okay, so that should be good. Then object name equals in.readObject, and then we're going to cast this as the data type of our class. So object name, that is actually user. So make sure it's whatever this object name is. So user equals, then we're going to cast this as our user data type in.readObject. And then we just need to close everything. So in.close, file in.close. Then we need to surround everything with either a try and catch block or add throws declaration. Then let's display some of the values from our user object that we're going to deserialize. So we'll system.out.println the user's name, as well as the password. User.password. And then let's also call the user.sayHello method. And then let's run this. So remember, for this class, I did not actually assign any of these values. We're actually going to be converting that byte stream back into an object, and that's how we get these values. So let's run this. Boom, there we go. Bro is the name. The password is I heart pizza, and it calls the hello method. So now if we went back to our serializer class, our main class, where we assign these values, and we were to actually change these and run the program again. So let's say we're going to update the name to bro code and the password to something secure such as password123. Compile and run this. So this will overwrite our ser file. We go back to our deserializer class, run this, and we have some new values for this object. So when you serialize, it saves the state of the object as a byte stream, and deserialize is to take that byte stream and rebuild it as an object. Next, here's some important notes related to serialization that we should be aware of. So number 1 is that any children classes of a parent class that implements the serializable interface will do so as well. Number 2, any static fields are not serialized. That's because they belong to the class itself and not any one individual object. And when we use serialization, we're really just taking the values of that object and we're saving them. We're having them persist so we can load it later. So any static field is really the property of the class and not any one object. So number 3, the class's definition is not recorded when we deserialize. So we need to cast it as the specific data type of that object. So you can see that in this line. So we're taking our user and we need to cast it as of this data type when we read this object. And if I were to remove this cast, it will cause a problem. And it says type mismatch cannot convert from object to user. So that's why we cast in this line of code back into our data type of our object. So number 4 is that any fields declared as transient aren't serialized, they're ignored. So let's actually practice this. So let's go back to our serializer class, the user class for this, and we're going to use this transient keyword for the password. Let's say that we don't want to send the password over. So we're going to type in transient, and then let's go back to the deserializer user class, and we're going to make sure this is transient as well because we want to make sure that these two classes match exactly. So let's take the serializer main class, run this. So object info saved. Let's go back to the main class for our deserializer, run this. You can see here that we have the name, but we have null for the password. That's because we marked this property, this value as transient. So this value is ignored. Anything that has the transient keyword is not serialized, it's ignored. Number 5, so this one's kind of a big one. So there's this value called the serial version UID, and it's a unique version ID for a class that is serializable. So let's dive more into this. So here's what I found on the serial version UID. It's a unique ID that functions much like a version number, and it verifies that the sender and the receiver of a serialized object have loaded classes for that object that match exactly, and it ensures that the object will be compatible between machines. It ensures that these two classes match exactly. It's like a secret code. It functions much like a hash where it's calculated based on the class's properties, members, and a few other things. We can actually take a look to see what this serial version UID value is going to be. So here I am within the main class of my serializer project folder. So we can actually declare and assign this serial version UID, and it's of the long data type. A long is really just a 64-bit integer, so it can hold a very, very large number. So it's of the long data type, serial version, I misspelled that, serial version UID equals, and these are the steps to actually retrieve what the current version is going to be. So we're going to type object stream class dot look up, and then within the parentheses we're going to type user dot get class, and then at the end of this dot get serial version UID, and then we can simply just display this. Let's take a look to see what this is going to be. So this long number here is our serial version UID. It is actually calculated for us based on certain aspects of this class, much like a hash. So this example just so happens to begin with -764. And I'm actually going to copy this and paste this within the main class of our deserializer class. And then we can take a look at what this number is going to be. So since these two user classes match for our serializer and deserializer, these both have the same exact number for the serial version UID. So right now, I'm actually going to go to the user class of our serializer class, and let's just change one aspect of this class. Let's say that we're going to rename say hello as instead greeting, and then we're going to run and compile this. Now for our serial version UID, a completely different number is calculated. So now this is technically a different version of our user class compared to our deserializer. So what happens if we were to actually attempt to deserialize this new byte stream that has a different serial version UID? So now we get this thing called a invalid class exception. And this is what happens when you attempt to deserialize a byte stream that has a different serial version UID. So you need to make sure that these serial version UIDs in fact match, and you can actually explicitly state what you want these numbers to be. I'm going to head back to the user class of our serializer class, and I'm going to change this back to say hello instead of greeting. So if you were to take a look at the class name, there's actually a warning, and it says the serializable class user does not declare a static final serial version UID field of type long. So we can actually, and it's actually recommended to do this, add a default or a generated serial version ID. So let's add a default one, and we can actually assign this as something. So let's say that we're working on version 1 of this class, and then if we want to update this to version 2, we can just simply change this number. So I'm going to assign this user a serial version UID of 1, and then let's run this. So now when it prints the serial version UID, this is now 1. Well, that's the basics of serialization. If you'd like a copy of all this code, I'll post all of this in the comments down below. But yeah, that's the basics of serialization in Java. Hey you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. If you learned something new, then you can help me help you in 3 easy steps by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.